Welcome back, folks. Rudy, Alpha Investments. Today, some sealed booster box discussion. Today, I purchased a couple little booster boxes all the way back in the late 90s here. Visions and 8th edition from actually a gentleman. And I want to share a little story, and I want to kind of show you a couple neat little boxes, and I thought it was kind of be a cute little video today, everybody. So, let's move my Arabian Nights out of the way here. And, Dear Rudy, Floppy Taco Dynasty 8th edition never leaves a basement. You really know me. You really know me. I love how you guys try to act like there's humor on this channel. It's not funny. Anyways, I've been playing Magic since the summer of '94. Saved up birthday and holiday money. Worked odd jobs around the neighborhood. Begged my mom for money to ride up to the local card shop. Ah yes, the LCS, the local card shop, before the modern culture took over. To get a couple packs of cards. Magic has been more or less a part of my life ever since. And I started watching your videos years ago. Thanks for the views. Appreciate it. And rekindled my desire to play. How many people have honestly come back to Magic because they watch my videos? I really wonder. I always wondered that number. I like to collect and build up my local community. I bought these specific booster boxes 3-4 years ago with many other booster boxes with the intention of doing chaos drafts and booster drafts and some vintage block booster drafts with friends and in-person Magic community. We actually did that and had a blast. Sat down with 6 to 12 friends on a Friday, Saturday night, closing your eyes and grabbing 20-30 packs from Magic's history. Drafting and building decks with wildly different mechanics was a real challenge. Then playing into the wee hours of the morning. Laughing and talking about when we went to the local card shop. Rummaged through boxes of commons. Made decks we didn't know what the hell we were doing. The simple days of the game. The simple days of the game. So, I bought a couple boxes from this gentleman. Just sealed boxes. As you can see, we did a couple boxes of Visions here. I don't really talk about Visions very much. This is kind of one of those sets I don't really discuss much on this channel. I'll be honest with you all. It's not really a big topic. So, Visions was kind of not well received. Let's kind of put it that way, everybody. In the late 90s, what's the exact year on this bad boy? Is there an exact year? I'm not sure. Somewhere. I don't know. 99, 98 range. And simply put, Visions, Mirage was also kind of not the best received. It was more of Wizards' downturn on the late 90s. A lot of people don't realize that kind of stuff. Where it was very successful, nowadays looking back. But in the moment, I don't know if everybody fully understands that. Some of those years, because everybody always makes comments to me, Rudy, if I could go back, I would have just bought all these boxes of Mirage and Visions and Stronghold and Weatherlight and Exodus. And I said, yeah, but you don't quite grasp that that's like saying I should have gone back in the 80s and bought Apple stock for $1. Well, for like 10, 15 years, Apple stock was terrible. People were losing their butts. Nobody made money in the 80s. Pull up the charts of 70s, 80s, and 90s. It's easy to say that in 2020. But you have to understand, if you were there in the moment, and let me tell you all something, I played Magic in the late 90s when these sets came out. I pre-ordered one box myself at my local game store in North Florida here. And let me tell you something, I got the one box of cards, I played it, I didn't really like it. I mean, Mirage cards felt weird, they were different. The theme, the strength, the power, it really wasn't that great of an experience for me. But then as years went by, it really grew on me. And of course now, in modern 2020 culture, Mirage and Visions and sets like that are very sought after. They're very rare in sealed box form. The prices are nowhere near the old prices they used to be. And the markets realize, holy crap, these boxes are over 20 years old. They're really cheap for their age. Really cheap for their age. So, Visions is kind of one of the sets that I never really bought a lot of. I was always a Mirage guy when I decided to kind of expand to that. I do believe Visions moving forward is probably going to be, I could say, it should be maybe $1,000 box maybe. But I don't know if I have a hard time saying it should be like a $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 box. I don't know. I mean, we would need some substantial movement and some reserve list cards within that product and substantial scarcity to really continue to push that higher. I think the bigger stories is going to be the Stronghold and the Weatherlight. Those are the biggest movers of 2020. But we don't know. Again, trying to predict this stuff is a joke. It's impossible. It just makes people laugh. But that's kind of my thing on Vision. So the other thing I did buy though was actually a couple boxes from this gentleman. He had some 8th edition core set. Is this 8th edition? or does it just say core set booster? God, these boxes were so strange back then. How they just would say core set across. Isn't that crazy how they would do that kind of thing? It was just such a weird time how they would, it won't even, it just, anyways. So when I bought these boxes from the guy, I'll be honest with you all, old core sets don't do a lot for me. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a huge fan of the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th edition core sets. I know kind of the argument is when you hit 7th edition later, 7, 8, 9, 10, not M10, but 7, 8, 9, 10th edition with the X 10th edition. It confuses people. Remember, there's 2 10th editions, the X and M10. I know it's confusing as anything. I was never really just a dramatic fan of it because I just thought they were just very weak. The sets became really huge. Like, look at the size of like 5th, 6th, 7th edition sets. Some of those sets are like 400 or 500 cards. And on top of that, it's just, there's not a lot of value there. They didn't age real well, you know? Now, obviously, what has 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th going for it is because they started inserting foils, and they made the foils black bordered and the non-foils white bordered, create a huge new dynamic for the marketplace. To this day, foils from the original 7th edition is reason 7th edition boxes are extraordinarily expensive. And it's the reason why boxes like, I don't know, these are 6th or 8th edition, I can't, it's driving me crazy now. And what's really weird about these, you guys ever shake these? There's like a piece of metal in them. So really, listen to this. I don't know if you guys can hear that on camera. That just looks inappropriate at this point. Okay. But it's just really strange because I guess maybe they put a coin or a plastic piece on the top of it. I've never cracked one of those. But I've never really been a big fan of the core sets. Just, it is what it is. They don't do a whole lot for me. They don't excite me. And I feel like long term, I think the returns and the growth on these core sets are going to be a lot more limited. Now when you get back to 4th edition revised, obviously ABU, that's a very different conversation. But when it comes to like the 5th, 6th, and even 8th, 9th, 10th, it's just, they're cool, they're unique, but I just have a hard time believing that's really going to be what the future is going to be like. Wow, I wish I had some of those. I just don't see it. And again, I've been wrong many times, but that's just my personal perspective, everybody. Now, I want to swing back here before we end this little, just short video today. I know, 10 minutes, not a second left. Don't click off till 9:59. When we go back to the Visions boxes, you know, it was funny because I remember being younger here with these, when Mirage and Visions came out. The supply had already been ramped up post-Ice Age time period, so there was a lot more of the product made. But they didn't print the product very long. It wasn't like what you guys feel today with the printed demand, and this was not Bronze Age magic. This was still way back in the Golden Age boxes where they had reserve list cards in them. But it was really strange because they were still overall pretty difficult to get, Mirage and Visions boxes in the late 90s. I don't know if any of you all actually remembered or actually tried to buy boxes from years ago. You really couldn't just go into a store and say, hey, I want to buy a case of Visions. Hey, I want to buy a case of Mirage. Remember, first of all, the cases back then were 10 booster boxes per case, not 6. For example, like Mirage, the starter decks, the cases I have are like these long rectangle cases. And the boxes are like lined in it for the starter deck box. It's really crazy. And you couldn't just go to the store. And you couldn't tell the LGS owner and just say, hey, I'd like to buy a case of Visions. He wouldn't have it. Because the way the distribution was back then, it was literally like magazine, mail a check, phone call a distributor. It was very, very old-fashioned. A lot of the distributors and the people that were involved back then, I mean, they didn't even take credit cards. There was no websites. Everything was super old school. So it's really strange to look back. So remember that, everybody. When you talk about things like this, and there's probably someone out there with 1 million boxes and all, it didn't work that way. Even a store couldn't get cases of these. Even if you walked into the store as a customer, you couldn't just tell the store owner you wanted it or call your distributor and order it. It didn't work that way. It was a very strange time period, the way collectibles were distributed in the 90s. So I wanted to lay that out there. Final thought, though, on everything. I just wanted people to be aware that I'm still a huge fan of these overall old sealed products. I still feel as a whole, especially Mirage and Visions, are extremely undervalued. And again, anytime I can get them for probably under $1,000 a box, depending on the quantity of the purchase, I think it's going to be worth it long term. I do think they will make their way higher to 1,000 plus, but it's probably going to take a while. But it's worth it. I still love it. I think it's all worth it.